I'm in South Africa to find truth. In a country where farming is one of the most dangerous jobs on earth.
The farm murders are brutal.
Bullet went in here, came out here.
Where cities are crumbling.
The visible deterioration of South Africa.
Where the men prepare for civil war.
We need to prepare for whatever is coming.
A hydroponic system, a few thousand litres of diesel there.
And the wives fear for their lives.
You're not safe. You're never safe.
He'll probably come and kill us.
Where leaders and criminals stand hand in hand.
Everything that you owe, it's ours. Our people are at war in farms now.
It's without compensation.
A nation at boiling point.
But there is a genocide coming in South Africa. Within 5 years, a civil war will begin in South Africa.
And I'm here to tell you why.
Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is our movie review day. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. We talked about Lauren Southern's documentary, Farmlands. This is about, again, we're continuing the South Africa theme. Her movie, her documentary, Farmlands, is actually very good, and I think she's even done a, you might even pull up on YouTube. You can, she's done a recent review. She goes, it's too late. Africa is on the precipice of this genocide. There's no way to avoid it now. I mean, this movie came out back in 2008. This is 7 years ago now. So, yeah, it's not looking good. The future is not looking good for South Africa. And, this is what, South Africa is going to end up becoming what DEI is here. What do you think about that, Chad? You think that I'm correct in that assessment? The end result of DEI is what South Africa is going to look like.
Yes, basically, because the difference kind of is with what we have going on in Africa is, the population is 8 to 7% white. And most of the jobs they have there, as we talked about yesterday, and we'll talk about in this documentary, there's a quota system there now. So you have to, the racial quotas is the hiring process. So only 7% of whites are allowed to be hired in any career field. So that includes anything from engineering to, doctors, whatever. So you're getting, unfortunately, a less educated group of people coming in that are taking jobs.
They say in the documentary that if you don't come to start up your own business in South Africa, you're not going to get hired by anybody. The country is dilapidating. It's falling apart. Its infrastructure is falling apart. And again, you have people who just go blame the white people, blame the Boers, blame the white people for all of our problems, even though nobody's working on their infrastructure. Again, this is what Democrats are all about. It's remember, it's the sexy stuff is, going to the rallies and, talking about causes and whatnot. The not sexy stuff, the stuff that government should be in control of, is the infrastructural stuff. Libertarians would even argue they shouldn't be in charge of that. You should privatize the infrastructural stuff. It might be better. And that's in South Africa, that might be the only way to fix the problem. But again, it alludes to the fact what we've been talking about here. It's what the left's mantra is. The only remedy to past discrimination is present or future discrimination. Mm-hmm. That's what you're seeing in South Africa. These people who are the children of, they were kids, probably during the 80s whenever apartheid was a thing. They're just the kids of that. They didn't have any say. It's so you're punishing them for the sins of their forefathers, for their parents. Again, this is why they need Jesus over there. Turn the other cheek. The people who are being murdered now are the children of the people who would have put those policies in place. They're definitely not beneficiaries of anything now, especially with all of them being killed, but it's crazy. And Lauren Southern did a really good job with this documentary. Again, she is a conservative YouTuber, and she's finally retired. She's just kind of dealing with her kids and her family and stuff now, so she's stepped away.
I have that video queued up here. You said this. How true is the farmland today? Is that the one you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Okay, well, I've got that queued up. Let me full screen it, and I'll get us over to the multi-screen.
Well, how long
view.
is it? Is my question.
It's 11 minutes. So that's the only question you want to ask yourself.
I mean, we can review it later, but I mean, do you want to stick with the movie review first, or
Yeah, we can try. So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and do that then. So we'll
Okay.
go to movie review, and then I will transition back, and we'll get this started.
Okay. But yeah, so there's a lot to dissect about this documentary. And again, this informed me greatly. Like the first 10 minutes of the documentary is a history lesson
Yes.
about South Africa in general and like the people who are there. So the Africans who are there are actually not the native Africans to that region. So there is a people that were there first. They were like a native tribe called the Khoi. The Africans who are there and complaining and saying killed the farmers are not the original inhabitants. It's the Khoi people. And so the Khoi were basically wiped out by the Zulu. So again, it's like the Native American issue here in America. It's like, who has original rights to the land? And I mean, if modern politics is anything to go by, it's not the actual people who lived there first. It's whoever cries the loudest. And right now, it's like obviously the vast majority of the population there are probably all descendants of Zulu folks, the ones who came down and wiped out the Khoi people.
Usually the most violent tribes are the ones that survive.
Yes, I mean, again, the African tribes that are in Africa are the ones that survived and sold slaves, like the Dahomey tribes and stuff. Like that Woman King movie came out, like that was a lie. I mean, they were like, oh, they were trying to end slavery. It's like, no, they weren't. Their economy was built on slavery. They had no intention of getting rid of slavery. But what's her name? Gosh, I can't even think of her name. The lady who directed and starred in the movie, she was like she basically did a retelling of history, and that's what Hollywood's notorious for, is retelling history to favor people. It's like, again, the JFK assassination stuff. It was the conservatives. It's like, are you kidding me?
And if I remember right, the rebellion in that movie was it was said only like 2 people were injured in it, and it was the fastest stop to a rebellion.
Yeah, it was like the French, stopped them completely. Like the women warriors were defeated instantaneously. They're like, the women warriors tried to stop slavery and were better fighters than the men were. It's like, the real history check, they were defeated soundly and quickly. But anyway, so her opening portion of the documentary is, again, a history lesson about the area. And again, it just tells you how violent the Zulu were in their expansion into these areas. And then, the intertribal fractioning of the Zulus.
Yeah.
And then more and more. I mean, violence and death is what followed the Zulus.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you can go and rewrite history and be like, oh, the Zulus are such noble warriors. Like, they killed a lot of people. In fact, they did like a peace treaty. Like, she talked about this, these farmers who went out there to farm the land, and the Zulu tribe said, if you give us 700 cows, we will
allow this.
Mm-hmm. So and then he goes, and then he invited the Zulu king them to see a presentation put on by his warriors. You know what the presentation was? He murdered all of them. So it's like, you can't tell me that these were just peaceful people. I mean, the white immigrants there who were trying to farm the lands came peacefully, did exactly what the Zulus asked. Said, yeah, if you give us 700 cows, the land's yours. Yeah. And then they killed them anyway.
Mm-hmm. And then, again, like what we're also talking about is it's not safe in Africa. Like, everyone's just like, oh, you should come and visit Africa. Like, it's just like people who visit the Barbados or Haiti or whatever. Like, you have to stay within the area of security or you're going to be in a dangerous location. Mm-hmm. We had friends who went hunting in Africa, and they have to have armed security with them at all times.
And they were like, it's for the animals, right? It's like, no, it's not for the animals.
It's protection for you, because if there's a group of people who they will rob you because they're going to know that you're tourists and they know that you're white.
Yeah, and they know that you have money and you don't know the land. So again, it's this fantasy world that we live in, that, Africa is this wonderful place. Like, oh, I miss the rains down in Africa. It's like, no, like the world is not this wonderful, safe place that the left would have you believe. Again, it's the tale of those bikers. Everywhere's peaceful. Everywhere's nice. And then ISIS found them, murdered them. It's like, that's the way of the world. It's an evil world we live in.
Yep.
But anyway, so her history lesson is fantastic. She does a good 10-minute breakdown of the history of the area, and then she goes into essentially breaking down, is the right correct saying that this is the pre-orders or the preludes to genocide, or is the left right going, no, everything's perfect in Africa, like South Africa is great. Remember, Nelson Mandela was freed, and then peace reigned in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the left's version of history. And then you have what's actually happening. Again, what you're seeing now is the DEI identity politics crap played out to its end goal in South Africa. So whenever you're ready, Chad.
Yeah, with this right now we have queued up is the Blood Sisters. This is her interview with the Blood Sisters, and how it kind of gets like very strange when they start talking about who is this racially motivated towards, and then they can't comment on that because they work for or with the government, and the government does not allow them to talk about these things. So this goes to show you that censorship runs rampant. Like, people are like, everywhere has free speech. They do not.
Yeah.
They do not have free speech in these places. So check this out. This is a great little interview, again, from the Blood Sisters from Lauren Southern's documentary.
This really looked like.
My name is Eileen de Jager. I'm one of the Blood Sisters, known in South Africa, and we are a nationwide leader in crime scene cleanup.
Have you seen an increase in these kind of attacks in recent years?
Absolutely. 18 years ago when we started this business, there was attacks. According to our knowledge and what we experienced, they started weekly. We would get one call a week to come and assist at either farm attack or farm murder. Now it's daily. It's definitely daily. It's increased unbelievably.
Between 2012 and 2016, the attacks on smallholding farms or properties deemed as a farm or an area non-residential has increased by an average of 72.9%. The figures that I've just given you is according to our statistics. Government statistics will differ.
Why are government statistics different?
You can tell us much about why that is.
We don't.
I don't work closely with them because we don't do every scene. But their figures are funnily enough lower than ours.
Look how cautious they're being.
I don't have a particular reason for that. I don't wish to divulge on that.
Okay.
This was the first time on camera a qualified government associate had confirmed my worst fears. Not only are the farm murders real, the genuine numbers are much higher than we imagined. But I wanted to know more. In a country that already has extensive murder rates, why are these so much worse?
Farm murders are one of the most gruesome kind of crime scenes that we have to deal with, especially, in South Africa. Farm murders are intentional. It's not robberies. It's intention. The intention of the attackers is, according to us and what we've seen, is to kill. It's been classified, especially on the crime stats as well, that it's attacks or robberies, burglaries. But because there is no statistic for farm murders currently in South Africa, the brutality of the farm murders in South Africa is undescribable. We found pieces of nails being pulled out. We found hands being removed from bodies. We found people raped, murdered, brutally murdered, babies, children, the farmers trying to protect their families, and there's just no stopping. The farm murders are brutal.
Yeah. And again, the government censoring or not reporting on that stuff accurately. That's reminiscent of them not reporting the statistics of who does crimes here.
In Johannesburg, just outside Johannesburg, we had a farm murder where 5 people came in. It was arranged by their domestic worker. And they drowned the 12-year-old boy in boiling hot water. So we had to remove the skin from the bath as it was peeling off him in the hot water. That was a terrible scene. If you look at the worst movies ever made, it's not really a patch against what is really going on there. It's unbelievable.
Having heard from the far right corners of the internet that these murders were racially based, I was intent on finding out what motives the Blood Sisters attributed to these kinds of attacks.
90% of the increase we found is due to unemployment, racial discrimination, and there's no hope. If you don't start your own business in South Africa, where are you going to work? There's no work.
Racial discrimination against who, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I have to be careful.
Someone off camera said careful.
Because
I have to be a little bit careful.
We work very closely with government.
Yeah.
I spoke to Simon about it outside. Racial discrimination against people. People. I know what you have to say here, and
No, it's okay.
we have to be so careful.
Yeah, I have to think.
We love everybody
Government
to hear what we
employees
have to say.
cannot
We want to
give
say
their
so much
opinions.
more, but we have to exercise so much restraint.
Anonymously,
Having to stay behind and work.
I will
here.
tell you a lot of stuff.
I knew I had to investigate further. I
Right.
had to
It's a
meet
good
the
stop point for
families
that.
caught up.
Again, folks, like right there. I mean, that actually went way longer than I thought. But yeah, that's terrifying. Again, once they start censoring your right to speak, I mean, anything's possible. They can do whatever they want to you. So imagine if, these people are witnessing the deaths of white farmers, and they can't even say, are these crimes racially motivated? Against who? Just people. What do you mean, what people? That's what the government's currently doing. They're currently saying, no, you can't say who they're discriminating against. That's the preludes to genocide. That's the preludes to war. That's like, again, I hate using this comparison because it's so over, especially by the left. But again, the left has desensitized us to this. But I mean, the closest comparison I can give you is Nazis rounding up Jews. There's a certain group of people that are not, they're second-class citizens, and they don't have to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, Christians get similar treatment in Islamic societies, and if you're not a diehard communist, like if you didn't follow Mao's rules, then, similar things happen to you. But I mean, again, this is the worst of both worlds. They are identitarian communists now. They're black identitarian communists. They do not care.
Yep. This next part that I have pulled up is a little segment saying how their hiring quota system works, which we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but this is it in the documentary. This is a pretty quick little segment.
Over the past few years, the South African government has used its black economic empowerment policy to coerce utility companies into depleting the number of white workers to reflect the racial makeup of the country. In reality, this means that companies with government contracts must shoot for a goal of a workforce with no more than 8% white workers. Since these mass layoffs, filling engineering and other high-skilled positions has been difficult, only worsening the water crisis and causing serious ramifications for the country's white farming minority.
I could no longer.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? You can't legislate a prosperous economy. You have to produce something. You have to have a population that can produce, that works. If you don't produce anything, you don't have innovators in your economy, nothing's going to happen. It's innovators that create jobs. Venture capitalists create jobs. Again, South Africa is devolving into a pseudo-fascistic or communist society. They're not going to produce anything. The government's going to come in, take over these businesses and say, we're in charge now, and we're going to put these unqualified people in these positions. It's the same thing happening with the airplanes and Obama's policies for the airports. It's like, hire unqualified people of color don't hire white people who score hundreds on the what do you call it? The
air traffic
control test. That's the end result. Putting unqualified people into positions they don't deserve or aren't good enough to be good at. And again, Africa, the farmers talked about having a water shortage. They didn't hire the right water engineers. And you hired water engineers who, A, don't know much about water engineering or aren't good at it. And then you wonder why there's a water shortage. And then they're racially biased, too. It's like, hey, white farmers are asking for more water so they can keep their fields and crops alive.
Which that could also be an eminent domain thing of them intentionally not sending water to certain farms or certain areas that are more, they're like, this is the more majority white farming area, so we're not going to send them water.
Yeah. Again, like, it's terrifying stuff, what's happening in South Africa right now. And again, I'm wondering, I kind of want to watch that Lauren Southern video and see like what her conclusion is, 7 years later.
We can. So here's the interview with the policymakers, and you can see how their government reacts to this
interview
type of stuff.
Yeah, check this out.
Makers to hear their side of the story. So I managed to secure an interview with Thabo Mokoena, a powerful businessman and a member of the ruling party's provincial executive committee, and someone, I have been advised, is a major force within the African National Congress.
So there's been like very slow progress in terms of addressing the land or redistributing the land. So we must speed up. And it's not the question that government does not have money for compensation or there is no money for compensation in the system. I think it's just part of the problem is that the bureaucracy is way too slow and then it undermines, the good objective. So you need to have like cutthroat departments that understand the agency and the plight of the people. When they are required to do their work, they must do it.
Are things leaning more towards with or without compensation? I don't know. I'm just curious.
He definitely doesn't want to answer that.
Look, the decision that has been taken, it's without compensation. There's nothing that government can do that is illegal to the farmers. Neither there is nothing that the farmers can refuse, which is law. So they don't have much options. It is not the intention of the ANC.
Pause it.
To
again, imagine if our government told that to any minority group in our country. We're going to take your land. Yeah, just anybody, but I mean a minority group specifically, though. It's like, we're going to take your land and you're not going to be compensated. Enjoy. I mean, there'd be outrage from, minority activist groups. But again, this is a group of white people in Africa. These are the descendants of the people who did apartheid. And now, again, as I said before, and I'll say it again, the only remedy in these people's worlds for past discrimination is future discrimination. We can do whatever we want. We can justify doing anything to these people because they wronged us in the past at some point. Again, it's a fly in the face to the teachings of Jesus, the teachings of Christ. It's like, hey, turn the other cheek, forgive, pray for your enemies, love your enemies. They don't care that they want to hurt people, and they are hurting people in South Africa. That's terrifying, man.
Yeah, but the government illegally seizing your property that you own with no compensation, how are you supposed to leave?
How are you supposed to
pack up and leave? I mean, everything that's there. What are you going to do?
That clearly these policies are there to just punish these people. They don't care about them. They just want to see them suffer. Terrifying. If you don't want these people in your country, give them a way to leave by going, we'll pay for your plane ticket.
Literally, what we're doing right now, we are literally paying for the migrants that Trump is sending home. Like, we're paying for their flights and stuff to go home. Like, they're not doing that. It's like, oh, you'll receive zero compensation.
Yeah, and who knows what happens to you. I mean, again, we don't care if you starve in the street. You're not going to be employed because...
Again, this is what we always ask. This is what conservatives always ask of liberals. Like, compared to what? America is the most racist country compared to what?
I'd say we're looking pretty good compared to South Africa in the 80s and now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even most European countries. I mean, good Lord. But we'll keep finishing this up because he keeps. I mean, this is crazy.
Go and grab the land illegally and then that type of thing. No.
And basically saying the law, like if we write it into law, they'll be breaking the law if they don't give us their land. No kidding.
Yeah, it sounds like communism, fascism, all that stuff. It's like if I create a law that says Jews or white people are no longer people, they can't do anything about it because they're not people anymore. I can do whatever I want to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's slavery, second-class citizen type thing.
Yeah.
We will do it with
These people's ideology is
the
terrifying.
laws of this particular country. And then if it means that the laws of this country are not adequate to address that, the first thing to do is to introduce the new laws that allows us to be able to. But once it's law, no farmer, no person that can come and say that I am going to disobey this law. No, do it at your own peril.
This seems
Legislate
to be the official
away their
party
rights.
line. Don't
Pretty much.
worry, everything is fine. Ignore, cover up, and don't mention it. But former financial advisor to the ANC turned political activist Simon Roach has spoken out against this approach in recent years.
Our economy is imploding. The value of our currency has deteriorated dramatically, almost unbelievably. We've
almost
been
like communism
downgraded
doesn't
to
work.
junk status. We have
who would have guessed?
an official unemployment rate of about 38%, just over 38%, but an unofficial, in other words, the non-government sources say that it is certainly 50%. We have about 16.3 million, in fact 16.3 million people on social grants and an income tax base of 3.1 million people. Taken together, these are the reasons we believe there will be a civil war. And I'd like to add a final anecdote. We recently had a protest in South Africa against farm murders. The protest was called Black Monday. And afterwards, our Minister of Defense said that if whites stage another such protest, they will bring a civil war upon themselves. They will provoke a genocide.
Like the wider situation in
Wow.
South
If you protest against a law, you're going to bring on a genocide on yourself. So, can't even protest. Again, other nations don't have free speech.
Yeah. How dare you, minority population, come here and complain and protest that you're being strategically murdered and killed out on your farms? How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's terrifying stuff. The fact that they can say that to you. I mean, again, imagine if here in America we told BLM, you can't protest anymore. Bye. And again, we all know they're being funded by Soros, BlackRock, like all these. It's not an organic grassroots protest, Black Lives Matter. I mean, remember, the lady that wrote Patrice What's-Her-Face or whatever, she bought 3 mansions with all the proceeds. Clearly, that stuff's going to a charitable cause.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, I use the mansion for business. Oh, I bet you do.
Yep.
So
this next part here is this is another political party called the Black First or something like that, and this lady is a radical. Like, you're wondering where all this anti-white sentiment's coming from? It's coming from organizations like this. So check this. This is the last clip that I have, and then we're pretty much wrapped up with this. Other than telling people to go watch and support this thing on Sony. It's on YouTube for free. All you have to do is go to Lauren Southern's channel.
Yeah, go type in Lauren Southern or just type in Farmland
Farmlands
documentary. You'll find it. It'll pop right up.
In order to learn more about why anti-white racism is thriving in the country, I spoke to the deputy president of Black First, Land First, one of South Africa's more radical political parties.
Last year, Andile Mqitama founded the Black First, Land First, which he says aims to put land and the economy back in the hands of Black South Africans. BLF is taking...
We have to fight in order to attain freedom as the black majority in this country. And the fight has to be located in taking back the land and expropriating back into the people, in seizing the...
Okay, so they're the majority. This is the one thing that drives me absolute nuts. So the majority, this argument is the majority of the country, might makes right argument, is what she's basically giving right now. So why is it that in Africa, it's okay for the majority population to completely dominate and, discriminate against the minority population, but in America, that's wrong?
Yeah, and I guarantee you all the liberals and people on the left will support this woman for saying what she's doing. They'll be like, oh, yeah, that's great. They should do whatever they want with their land. I mean, those white people are clearly wronged them in the past. I mean, again, it's like what I described yesterday. It's like the Israeli-Palestine conflict. You're there. They're there. You have two options. Forgive and forget and move on, or just attempt to kill each other for the rest of your days. And I mean, again, it's pretty clear which direction it's going in South Africa. Pretty clear. So.
The means of production and expropriating everything.
Seize the means of production and redistribute. That's communism. Communism. These are communists. These are I mean, it's literally the fist. It is literally the communist black fist. You know, that's all this is. It's communists. These are communists are the worst people in the world. I hate to tell you this.
They will justify anything to bring it again because they don't have a god. Their god is their ideology. If they can bring about communism, they think in their world that they will bring about paradise on earth. So again, if you are in the way of a communist, you are in the way of their god. Communism is their god. If you attempt to say, hey, that's a bad idea, you are an enemy, and they can do whatever they want. They can justify doing anything to you because you are someone who is trying to stop salvation. You're trying to stop paradise.
Mm-hmm. You are a heretic that is preventing them from getting into heaven.
Yeah.
From them starting their paradise, their heaven on earth.
Yep.
Rather redistributing everything equally. And a society that would embody a value system that puts black people first will have to be attained through confrontation, unfortunately, because our people have waited for so long, right? We've waited for so long, peaceful, and nothing is happening in terms of changing our lived experience, right? In fact, the settlers know that very well. So we are already at war. Our people are at war in farms now.
White people and persons like Breitenbach are land thieves, and they have no stake to this society, and the black majority understands that, and we will respond accordingly.
I think black people have been patient enough for more than 400 years of colonialism, and we don't want you to feel pity for us. We are coming for you, and we are going to get everything that you own. It's ours.
Boom. She couldn't have said that more clearly. That's terrifying, guys. What's yours is ours, actually. And again, it flies in the face to the history lesson. I mean, again, I wish that was, this is like near the end of the documentary. I wish she had her history lesson and then shown this girl right after. Because what that girl said flies in the face of history. It's, again, communists have no recollection of history, or they're very bad at it, or they don't look at it, or they look at it through rose-tinted lenses, where if communism was just done just right, everything would have been fixed. Everything would have been better. But that's not what happens, ever.
Mm-hmm.
It always kills. It always leaves a wake of death and destruction in its path. Because, again, you're not going to create heaven on earth here.
Yep. So I have that other video queued up if you want to watch it. It said, how true is the farmlands today? And this is from a year ago.
I don't think we have time. But, yeah, I mean, I guess.
We can try.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. All right, but, yeah, no, so we'll see what Lauren has to say about her retrospective look at it.
Ago now, and in that film, I depict the atrocious racism and violence directed towards the white South African farming minority. More than that, though, the film touched on the general destabilization of what every world leader swore to us would be a progressive success story, the Rainbow Nation, which increasingly, rather than attempt to reduce racism, has just directed it towards other groups, non-blacks, in the form of black economic empowerment policies, which ensure black people are propped up over any other group in the country, white, Asian, Indian, doesn't matter, right? Farmlands overall predicted a very bleak future for South Africa based on the course it has taken. In some cases, interview subjects even predicting civil war and total infrastructure collapse.
Fundamentally, we're saying we believe that the trajectory of our state suggests that it is going to end badly, that this trajectory is going to collide with a wall or a window or whatever.
The family doesn't use it for its day-to-day use. It's specifically a preparation for a nationwide anarchy situation.
The scale and thoroughness of these preparations would make you think the apocalypse is just around the corner, but Simon assured me that these were only the preparations of one of thousands of others across the country prepping in the same way. Now, many at the time of the film's release called this an insane conspiracy theory. Lauren, none of this is gonna happen, right? But with the US just last month issuing safety warnings to Americans in the country over infrastructure collapse, mass civil unrest, and financial disaster, I think it's worthwhile asking today, how close is South Africa now to the reality that Farmlands predicted?
Okay, let's go.
Oh, crap. Plan your next trip.
All right, so South Africa has seemingly been teetering on the precipice of collapse for ages now. Just 2 years ago, I was reporting on mass riots and looting across the land that left communities banding together to defend themselves from hordes of criminals, with the government just having seemingly abandoned them. But of course, the South African people are some of the hardest, most resilient humans on this planet, and they made it through this. But resilience only gets you so far when dealing with a powerhouse of incompetence that is the South African government. And it's really beginning to look like the slope into oblivion is going straight off a cliff edge this year. Let's start with their economic situation, because it's kicked off a lot of this. The inflation rate in South Africa between 1958 and 2022 was 10,525%. So 100 Rand in the 50s is worth 10,000 Rand today. That is staggering, and it's only getting worse. As of this year, the nation can now also consider itself the winner of the world's highest unemployment rate contest. I'm not kidding. In the last couple of years, they have hit 44.4% unemployment at times. I truly don't even know how a country functions at that stage, but I don't know. As for cost of living, petrol, diesel, food, all of it have surged out of control in the last year, with even interest rates climbing from 7% to 10.5% for home and property owners. Starting this upcoming April, electricity will get a 32% tariff increase, sending costs through the roof. And even if you want to escape this economic hellhole, you're going to have to pay 30% more for airplane tickets out of the country. And just like thunder with lightning, economic collapse is almost always paired with infrastructure collapse. Just this February, the U.S. Embassy released a statement to Americans currently in or traveling to South Africa, warning them to begin stockpiling food and water in the wake of a power crisis and to be prepared for crime and civil unrest. This does not exude much confidence in the current state of the country, and it shouldn't, given locals like Twitter user @K9Reaper have been reporting the catastrophe on the ground. I'm just going to read a few of his chilling tweets saying, City Power has an average turnaround time of 2 to 3 days for grid repairs. They don't have the manpower, supplies, nor funds, and they've already used this year's budget. We're seeing an increase in coordinated attacks on water, power, and communications infrastructure. Looting is no longer just a daily thing, but is also now becoming a more structured issue with guerrilla planning involved. Our roads no longer exist. Anything that is state-run is crumbling. Police and hospital resources for the state don't exist and are also slowly disintegrating. Eskom, South Africa's only power producer, is averaging 50% or less power output, plunging massive parts of our country into rolling blackouts. Particularly terrifying is his...
Kind of just sounds like California.
Well, and what's crazy is, do you think that any of these people, especially the politicians, are going to have any self-reflection, like they're going to look inward and go, maybe this is our problem. Maybe we can't just blame the white people. Maybe we can't just blame somebody else. Maybe we have to look inward and solve our own problems. No, I think this is going to double down. What's going to end up happening here is a genocide's going to occur, and it's not just going to be the white people. It's going to be anybody who's not African is going to be killed. And then it's going to leave a door, and now Trump's going to tariff them because of all this anti-white rhetoric now. And what's going to happen is it's going to leave the door open to China to come in, if China even wants to deal with this problem. Because I know we were talking, China had military bases in Africa on the Africa deployment in the last.
They're exploiting Africa for their resources.
Yeah, so you don't think they're going to come in and be like, if you guys let us, we're communists too. And like, we'll help you, but you're going to do exactly what we say, and you're not going to be able to. And again, they're going to basically sell their country out to China to save them, and then they'll be like, at least we're selling out to communists and not dirty white people. And then one day, that resentment will build, and then China will have a problem to deal with Africa. Like they'll kill all the Chinese workers there.
Yep.
Report that our Navy, Army, and Air Force are done. Troops are buying their own boots. Army bases are being looted for copper. Vehicles and machinery are being cannibalized for parts, which would explain why they have been entirely useless during riots and civil unrest that have resulted in mass amounts of informal land grabs. Rioters have completely destroyed beautiful places like the Tygerberg Raceway, then gone in and just taken the land, started building houses on it. These land invasions and grabs are happening all over South Africa every single day now. Why would anyone invest in a country, build something in a country where there's no...
Okay, so can we just look at that? For every single liberal out there that's like a hippie, tree-hugging hippie type, look at this. Look what it was.
Anyone invest in a country, build something...
Look what it is now. This is what happens when you have people just do whatever they want in a nation.
Chaos.
Absolute chaos.
Does that look like the beautiful African country you want to visit? I sure don't. Take me to the golf course. Take me to the racetrack. I want to go out there and watch these tin huts being put up. I mean, like, is that insensitive? No. That's not insensitive. That's crazy. It's like, you're entitled to this land. Look how beautiful it was, and look what it is now. You think anybody that lives there thinks, wow, this is great?
This is the same reason why I said I love Owasso, but I'm not exactly thrilled. I mean, all Owasso's turned into is a bunch of, not that, ugly, but a bunch of just homes, a bunch of like real estate development places. That's all it is. I said we used to have a bunch of farm and, land around here, and it's just slowly dying out.
Yeah.
Something in a country where there's no laws being put in place to protect that which you buy and invest in or own. It is complete madness. Which brings me to another wonderful, fun issue, the crime in the country. South Africa already has one of the highest murder rates in the world, scoring number 3 in this category. It's like they're playing national collapse competitively because they keep beating their own high scores every single month, it seems. A report from February 17th shows that even just since December, murders have shot up from 74 a day to 82 a day. Sexual assault, 169 offenses daily. Violent robberies, 411
Insert
daily.
Leslie Nelson
And this
meme.
is just
Nothing
what's
to
being
see
reported,
here.
right?
There is absolutely nothing to see here, folks. Go to your homes.
So check this out. South Africa, conflict-related deaths per 100,000 people. Murder rate. Their murder rate. Good Lord. Compared with conflict zones in 2017. So their murder rate is almost equivalent to some of places that
were active war zones.
Exactly. That's wild.
It doesn't go against what the lady's saying. We are at war already.
Guys, how much crime has just been integrated into the culture there? I mean, technically, we were robbed in South Africa when I was filming Farmlands, but never reported it because it was just a part of the daily life people had gotten used to. Boys around the malls will walk up to your car with metal pipes and say, hey, you should pay me so that I can protect your car from robbers or people who might want to hurt it. And if you don't pay them, well, you'll come back to a car that's been beat to death with metal pipes. They'll ensure you needed that protection from them. Now, what about the government? Surely they must be doing something about all this chaos.
Again, we have a similar story with our buddy who was that, remember the contract repairman? Our buddy who worked up in North Tulsa? Exact same thing happened to him in North Tulsa, here in America, in Tulsa. He went out there, he was working on he was hired to contract somebody's house out there or somebody's apartment, and a guy came up to him and said, hey, his car got robbed, and he came back the next day to do it, and he had different tools with him. He goes, you know what, if you pay me, I'll watch your car and make sure none of these hooligans steal your stuff. And he paid him. It's like that, and I remember telling him, like, he was like, yeah, the guy watched my stuff, he got my back. And I was like, no, he didn't. He's the one who robbed you. He still has all your equipment from last time. You're paying him an extortion money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that happens here. That happens here in Tulsa. It happens here in America, all over the place. It's no different than a mobster coming up and going, we'll protect your business. You know, nobody's going to bother your business, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Well, let's look at the government corruption here, because it is next level. And I assure you, they are doing nothing more than sitting back and making a hell of a lot of money off of this collapse, playing their fiddle.
Sounds exactly like USAID right now, USAID.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like Nero as Rome burns. In fact, just last week, Andre Reuter, I'm most certainly pronouncing that wrong, he's the previous CEO of Eskom, South Africa's only energy provider. He gave a rather insightful interview to ETV where he discussed why he resigned and fled the country just this year, stating he was brought in to tackle corruption and end the rolling blackouts across the nation, but instead of being met with praise for his efforts, he said they attempted to assassinate him, putting cyanide in his coffee December 12th, the day of his resignation. He also claims the police had a total lack of interest in investigating the issue and that the workmen repairing the broken coffee machine on the day of his would-be poisoning have since absconded from work and just disappeared. This is all on the back of a leaked U.S. State Department call discussing the need to prepare for a total collapse of South Africa's power grid, which quite frankly is likely a result of government policies which force the company to fire large amounts of their staff in order to meet a 75% black ethnic quota by 2005, whether or not these individuals were the best suited for the job. As far as I'm concerned,
sounds like
this
DEI
is
to me.
State-mandated corruption, out in the open. And while the state are certainly doing their hard work to cripple this very necessary company, Andre's assassination attempt most likely came from another group making plenty of money off the infrastructure of South Africa, the mafia, who make large amounts of money from Eskom and other infrastructure they gut and steal from for their own needs. Now, what does South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, have to say about this all? Haha! We are not constitutionally obligated to provide anyone in South Africa power, so why would you? What about what you're humanly and morally obligated to do when stealing their money, you freak?
This is what we talk about. Like I said, the police telling you, like, we don't have the people or personnel to dispatch to your location. This is exactly what we're talking about. The government is not obligated to protect you. You think they would be, they're not. And that just proved it right there.
I suppose it's no surprise that he's shrugging off a total infrastructure collapse as a result of bad policy and corruption, as ironically enough, in 2020, an estimated 4 million undeclared foreign dollary dues were stolen from his private farm, which led to an investigation as to how the hell the president of the country had $4 million just laying around undocumented. Reports have gone back and forth on this, but in 2022, a panel in the South African parliament accused him of serious misconduct. However, I'm sure much like the investigation into Eskom CEO's assassination attempt, this investigation will dwindle into nothingness as well as these leaders continue on in power, collapsing the country. I really haven't even remotely touched on the surface of the corruption in this country, but I think you get the picture.
I can imagine.
Things in South Africa are not going well. The leaked calls from the U.S. government officials preparing for
but that, we'll just end it right there. But I mean, my God, that is absolutely ridiculous. The amount of corruption. I mean, and it's no different than what's going on, what we're finding out with USAID right now. Said it's government corruption and people losing money. I mean, the politicians ain't losing their money, but, you know, the people are suffering because of it. And this is exactly what we've been talking about with USAID and what we were talking about with yesterday, this corruption. Is like, America is the most racist country compared to what? Compared to what other country? What nation is less racist than America? And there are none. There are none. That's the main takeaway from this. I said Corey had to go downstairs and get to work. We ran a lot longer than we thought we were. But I've got a video to play us out with. But, I mean, as for that, I mean, as you can see, there's just a bunch of government corruption. It's not just us; it's all over the spectrum of countries, and at least our nation isn't falling apart because of it. But I think that it's honestly right now because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Joe Biden was basically running like the same kind of racket as it seems like how Africa was kind of going along. But anyway, this is Chad and Corey with Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. And God bless you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
I look at how this works for the Pope. Pope want to fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was First Communion as a Catholic. Confirmation as a Catholic. He ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us. I look at how this works for the Pope. Pope want to fix the Catholic Church.